Well, this conversation precedes Simon and Nnamdi Kanu. You would recall that there was an operator called the man from Umahia of Masob. Ralph
That's a movement for the actualization of Biafra.
Yes, so this conversation started pre-1957, all right, and then moved into the war, and then shortly after the war, and then it has continued to happen. So what we've seen is the metamorphosis of that same grievance, of that same pain. Although you would say that the manner in which the I call him a charlatan, has continued to pursue this issue, it's not that which is in support of what he said his stated objective is. So I suspect that in the absence of, in the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu, and then with what has happened to Simon Ekpa, that new operators are already on the scene. It's just that some of them are only known to a handful of their supporters. But then with the absence of this duo now, you begin to see new voices. And what I've seen now is that if you take out one, you create two in the process. And then what has happened over the years is that...
Well, that's the point Mahmoud Jega was making.
Yeah, exactly, because there are more in the making. So although you will say that their approach is noisome, but there is utility in the Nigerian government sitting back to understand the grievances of the region and finding an intelligent way to solve it.
Since the arrest of Simon Ekpa, it has become an opportunity for some people to the room, go TV station, go talk one or two where they don't even know. Yes, it has become opportunity also for some small quack lawyers who don't even finish year 3 to the room, go TV station, go radio station, go talk the things where they don't know. Simon Ekpa is a terrorist. He incites violence. Anyways, it's all well. Now, that is not the topic of today. As I always tell you, at this point, there are two basic things that are being discussed. One is the issue of extraditing Simon Ekpa down to Nigeria. And then the second one is the issue of whether imprisoning Simon Ekpa or holding Simon Ekpa, will it stop the agitation? These are the two basic questions that everybody is asking. In my own little understanding, I'll give you answers. I'll give you answer to those questions before I allow you to watch the analysis they gave, because actually this is what they discuss, you know, on this channel. So the first one, the issue of extraditing Simon Ekpa down to Nigeria may not work because of some treaties and some, you know, rules and regulation between Finland and Nigeria, of course, UN treaties as well. All right, so it might not work, though it might still work. All right, don't get me wrong, it might still work, but it might still not work. Now, the issue of whether in prison or holding Simon Ekpa will stop the agitation, believe me, it's not going to stop. Of course, in the recent days, we've seen, of course, some other person has come up to take up the post and say, come on, everything is going to continue as planned. So the issue is not going to stop. The issue is certainly not going to stop until the government look into this issue critically. Until they look into it critically, the issue is not going to stop. Nnamdi Kanu was arrested and everyone think, oh, that is the end of Biafra. Believe me, what are we hearing today? Simon Ekpa is arrested just a couple of days ago. What have we seen? Another person has come out and say, order continues. Isn't it? So what are we talking about? Let the government do the needful. And of course, I don't need to tell them what they will do. They know what to do. So let them do the needful and stop all this arresting this person. If you arrest 1 million person, you go tire. One day waiting will happen. So the best way or the best solution is for them to look into it critically and find an everlasting solution. Of course, I have said one or two things that the government might do in my previous video. Let them call these people and ask them what they want and find a way to do what they want for them. All right? So basically, that is it. So I'm going to allow you to watch the analysis these people gave on the issue of bringing him down and on the issue of, you know, with the agitation stop. So as you're watching it, do not forget to subscribe to this channel, right? Turn on your notification button so you get notified anytime I upload a video, right? Watch it.
Oh yes, Simon Ekpa was more of a megalomaniac, if you ask me, in my own opinion. The fact about Simon Ekpa was he was a creation also of the Nigerian government, if you ask me, in my own personal opinion, because after Nnamdi Kanu was brought back from Kenya and he was incarcerated, that gave rise to Simon Ekpa. And Simon Ekpa would never have a reason if Nnamdi Kanu had not been kept for this long. He doesn't cut across to us or me particularly, as one who thinks about self-determination, he's more of a man that believes in violence, took advantage of the situation he found himself because Nnamdi Kanu had been incarcerated, and for some reason he was able to sit at home on Mondays just because people were calling for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. And that's why for some of us we thought releasing Nnamdi Kanu would have caught the powers of the likes of Simon Ekpa, who will sit in Finland, very far away from home, giving instructions. Those instructions are being adhered to. People were actually being killed on his instructions. And you know, the funny thing about it was that conventions were actually also held in Finland. He has his followership, no doubt, because he's been able to build a cult around himself. If you notice on social media, there's this lady called Ngozi who styles herself as his chief of staff, who has called on them to continue with the agitation for the independence of Biafra on the 2nd of December, and gives this false impression that even with the arrest of Simon Ekpa, they can go on in declaring a Biafran republic on the 2nd of December. I think intelligence, that is the NIA, has not done well in this sense, because though we don't have an ambassador in Finland, there should have been an interface, sort of, before now. And even now that he's been arrested, I heard the chief of defense staff saying that he will be extradited to Nigeria. There's no extradition treaty between Nigeria and Finland. So what I expect Nigeria to do at this point is to make sure they shouldn't be monitoring his trial. They should have representation from the office of the Attorney General, actually go to Finland and make representation in not monitoring the trial, but being in the actual process of trial.
Well, let me come to you, Mahmoud Jege, because I'm told that our comms are well established now, and it's good to see you again. I mean, Simon Ekpa's growing influence was such that he had started imposing a sit-at-home order from Finland on the southeast, and threatening to use violence and intimidation to prevent the 2023 presidential election from taking place in the southeast. And this forced the Nigerian security agencies to massively deploy in force in the southeast, and that's how they managed to diffuse that situation. But with his arrest, we're not really sure how his foot soldiers will react, are we? Can the southeast throw off the shackles that he and his supporters tried to force on the people, or is it likely to continue in your assessment? Mahmoud Jege.
Oh, I see. Well, certainly it is a very interesting development, because Nigeria as a whole, and particularly the southeast region, has suffered for many years through the inciting activities of people allegedly campaigning for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra, as they call it. And this man, Simon Ekpa, is so far away in Finland, and he capitalized on the detention and trial of Nnamdi Kanu, the IPOB leader, and has been saying all kinds of things grounding this sit-at-home order. It's a very terrible thing that happens to a region like the southeast, where commerce is the main activity of life. So whether he gets extradited or not, he had tested to the limit the liberal atmosphere in the Scandinavian countries, because I mean, he chose his residents very carefully. The Scandinavians are extremely liberal, but even them will not be happy to see violence being encouraged in any part of the world, because if for anything, if 220 million of us in Nigeria scatter, at least half will go to Europe and some will be in Finland. So they should not be very happy about that. And if the Nigerian authorities really rise up and make an appearance in the Finnish judicial system with all the evidence to show the havoc that his posts on social media have been creating in Nigeria, then they could very well get him convicted and incarcerated and at best silenced. Now what you cannot prevent is another person trying to step into the void and do the same thing, but we cross that bridge when we get to it.
Well, that's actually a very good point, because I think Kenny also raised this issue, and that is that you could argue that Nnamdi Kanu's continued detention has meant that IPOB no longer operates as a coherent force with a clear command structure and a clear political program, and that is what has helped to throw up more extreme factions led by the likes of Simon Ekpa. I wonder what your thoughts are, Chima Christian.
Well, this conversation precedes Simon and Nnamdi Kanu. You would recall that there was an operator called the man from Umahia of Masob. Ralph
That's a movement for the actualization of Biafra.
Yes, so this conversation started pre-1957, all right, and then moved into the war, and then shortly after the war, and then it has continued to happen. So what we've seen is the metamorphosis of that same grievance, of that same pain. Although you would say that the manner in which the I call him a charlatan, has continued to pursue this issue, it's not that which is in support of what he said his stated objective is. So I suspect that in the absence of, in the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu, and then with what has happened to Simon Ekpa, that new operators are already on the scene. It's just that some of them are only known to a handful of their supporters. But then with the absence of this duo now, you begin to see new voices. And what I've seen now is that if you take out one, you create two in the process. And then what has happened over the years is that...
Well, that's the point Mahmoud Jega was making.
Yeah, exactly, because there are more in the making. So although you will say that their approach is noisome, but there is utility in the Nigerian government sitting back to understand the grievances of the region and finding an intelligent way to solve it, despite the fact that the way these do have gone about it may not be in the best of ways. But despite those, you can still find some utility in addressing those bottom line factors.
That's a good point. So let me come to you, Kenny Okolobo in Lagos. Do you think that with or without Mr. Ekpa in the picture, the wounds that he talked about will continue to fester in the southeast?
Oh yes, it's first of all, it will definitely be affected, because he has been the head of the sit-at-home mantra, and all because Nnamdi Kanu had been incarcerated. But why I did call out the Nigerian intelligence agencies, they've not been able to infiltrate the so-called movement that Simon Ekpa has been able to build. If you had watched what happened in Finland a couple of months ago, you'll see that people came in from Japan, people came in from America, people came in from the UK, and they were all gathered in Finland and declared him their prime minister. And these people are those who are funding the likes of the crises that are going on in the southeast, the terrorist strikes that are going on in the southeast, all in the name of self-determination. So you must be able to engage these people, because it goes beyond. They are very well educated people who believe in the cause of Simon Ekpa. Sorry to say, if you go on social media, if you go on Twitter, you see a lot of them there. And they are very unhappy that he's been incarcerated, because over a period of time, they have not been able to be engaged. So they must do a lot to engage these people, because these are Nigerians who are maybe tired of one or two things that have happened in this country, and have said that, look, it's better we be in Biafra. It is not enough to just hold on to the fact that you want to incarcerate Simon Ekpa or extradite Simon Ekpa to Nigeria. Now, Nnamdi Kanu was held for such a long time, and has been held for such a long time. Has it stopped the crisis in the southeast? It has not stopped the crisis. He said, if you release me, I will stop the crisis. What does that mean? That means that, look, he has to be released to engage with his people. They must think of engagement at this material point in time. It cannot be by force, because a lot of people still do believe in Simon Ekpa. As much as people like us sit down here and condemn him, there are those who are very angry that he has been held back in Finland and want to continue, just like the guests in the studio have also said that you might hold him and 5, 10 or 15 Simon Ekpas may rise.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that, and we will obviously watch to see what is likely to happen next. But I think, as you pointed out, Kenny, and also Mahmoud Jega, we'll just have to see whether or not extradition happens. The Nigerian defense spokesman has talked about wanting Mr. Ekpa to be extradited to Nigeria, but it is a Finnish investigation. And Simon Ekpa is a citizen of Finland, so how much that complicates the possibility of his extradition to Nigeria. We will have to wait to see.
So what do you think? What do you think about this video? Drop your comment on the comment section, all right? And please do not forget to subscribe to this channel, because on this channel, I bring you all the information of everything that is happening in and outside Nigeria, all right? So thank you and God bless you.